welcome to WSI's Digital Insider podcast series, where in each episode we'll be interviewing a marketing expert and top influencer in the digital marketing space to help all of you stay up to date on the latest trends and tactics. My name is Leanna San Pedro. I'm a member of WSI's corporate team in Toronto, Canada, which is home to my beloved Toronto Blue Jays and the not-so-beloved Maple Leafs. I also happen to be your host today. In this episode, we'll be exploring the power that content marketing has on how well, or how poorly for that matter, your business is perceived by your online audience. Our guest speaker today is Mr. Dave Kerpen, who is founder and CEO of Likeable Local, a social media software company serving thousands of small businesses. Many of you might know him as 50% of the brains behind the famously known sponsored wedding in New York, which raised over $100,000 back in 2006. Since then, he's penned several New York Times best-selling books, which teach professionals how to leverage the social sphere to become more transparent, engaged, and likable. So sit back, grab a drink, and enjoy the session. Dave, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm super psyched.
So let's start off by talking a little bit about content. In the last several years, we've seen companies from all industries, beef up their own content creation in an effort to better engage with their audience. But many businesses, unfortunately, are still somewhat hesitant to share other people's content. So why, or is it important for small and medium-sized businesses to curate and share industry content in addition to their own?
It's super important. You have to think about it from the consumer's point of view. So what I often say is take off your marketing cap, take off your business cap, and put on your consumer cap, and think about the content that you like to consume as a consumer. You like to consume a wide variety of content. You don't want to just consume content from one business and one point of view. So if you then put your business cap back on, it's really important to share not only, what's going on with your business, but industry content, other people's content, inspirational content that's going to be liked, clicked, and shared. That's the kind of content that you want to share, regardless of whether it comes from you or anyone else.
Now, on the same topic of likes, there are a lot of marketing professionals who might not particularly care for generating likes on social media and think they're actually a superficial metric, which I personally don't agree with. But what do you think about that? And do you think there's anything to gain from generating a high number of likes or shares for that matter?
Sure. So let's be clear. Likes can be superficial and they can be meaningful. We had a client come to us a few years ago, a major jewelry client. They came to us with 11,000 likes. And they said, we're happy about these 11,000 likes, but if we feel like nothing's happening with them, can you help us? Well, we took a look sort of behind the curtain, if you will. We took a look at all the demographic information about those 11,000 likes. Now, this is an American jewelry company. And as it turns out, of those 11,000 likes, 10,500 of them were Indonesian teenagers. Yes, it's true. So for that client, in this case, those 11,000 likes were in fact quite superficial. Totally meaningless. However, if you can accumulate relevant, targeted likes of people that can become your customers, of people that are in your target audience, of people whose friends are in your target audience, then it can become very, very meaningful. So, there's a line in the movie The Social Network. You know what's cooler than $1 million? $1 billion. Well, my line is kind of the opposite. You know what's cooler than reaching 1 billion people on Facebook? Reaching the right 100,000 or the right 1,000 or the right 100 to grow your business. And it's not simply about likes, but if you get the right audience, the right people, well, then likes are the first step towards building your audience that you can then engage with and then finally sell to and grow your business.
Back in September, I was in Boston for Inbound 2014, and I had the pleasure of attending your session, Why It Pays to Be Likeable. And so, for our listeners today who might have not had the opportunity to join us, can you briefly touch on your vital concepts for achieving social media success?
Sure. So, obviously, first of all, thanks for attending. That was a blast. We have great friends over at HubSpot. So I touched upon 7 of the 11 concepts that I write about in my books. So, my first book was called Likeable Social Media, and I wrote about all these concepts for being likable in social media. And then I realized as I was writing and speaking about that book that the concepts that I wrote about weren't just applicable to social media, they were applicable to all of business. And so my second book, Likeable Business, I wrote about some very similar concepts and applying them to business. And then my third book, I took those same concepts, applied them to being a better leader. And finally, my next book, I'm going to take those same concepts and apply them to just being a better human being. So what are these concepts? Well, it all starts with listening. Listening, I believe, is the most fundamental aspect of social media and maybe business and maybe even life. And most people don't really listen, they wait to talk. If you can be the kind of person and kind of business that actually listens to customers, that actually listens to prospects, that uses social media to listen and pay attention, that's actually way more important than any other use of social media. The next concept is storytelling. Storytelling has always been the most powerful way to do marketing, the most powerful way to get your ideas out there. But it used to be to tell stories, you'd have to take out a 30-second television commercial or a 30-second radio spot or a billboard or a 5-color glossy brochure or a trade show. And now you can tell stories with social media in a tweet or in a video created from your iPhone or in a blog post. Storytelling has gotten much, much easier than ever before. And if your story doesn't resonate, the cool thing about social media is, unlike years ago when you might spend lots and lots of time and money on a TV commercial or radio commercial, today if your story doesn't resonate in social media, create another story. Mix it up, change another story. My story that I like to share about how I first started in business was that my wife and I both had a strong marketing and sales background, but we couldn't afford a traditional wedding. But we wanted a big wedding, so we ended up partnering with a minor league baseball team, the Brooklyn Cyclones, and created a sponsored wedding and sold sponsorships to a baseball game and got married at the end of the game. And 1-800-Flowers sponsored our flowers, and Smirnoff sponsored our alcohol, and David's Bridal sponsored our bridesmaids gowns, and Entenmann sponsored our desserts. We ended up raising $100,000 for an awesome wedding and $20,000 for charity, and the event was so great that we were featured all over the news, ABC, CNBC, New York Times, and thousands of blogs. And our wedding vendor said, "This was awesome. What are you guys going to do next?" We couldn't get married again, so we started a company instead. And I can tell that story now with a few lines and a picture in social media, and it still resonates really strongly with people. Like I said, the best part is if it doesn't resonate, you can just mix up. So we've got listening, storytelling. I guess I'll touch on a couple more quick concepts. Authenticity and transparency is a really important part of social media. It's important to use social media to bring your business to life, to bring some personality to it, to inject authenticity and transparency into what you're doing. So at Likeable, we have a product that creates thousands and thousands of post ideas, gives you great examples for content, but we still recommend to our clients to take our content and personalize it, make it your own, make it authentic. And finally, gratitude. I believe that the 4 most important words in social media are "I'm sorry" and "thank you." And if you can say "I'm sorry" when people have negative things to say about you, negative reviews, comments, etc., that goes a very long way. But even more important than saying "I'm sorry" is when people have something nice to say "thank you." Shockingly, 60% of brands and small businesses still do not respond to comments in social media. And you have an opportunity to be better than those people, to respond, to use those 4 powerful words, "I'm sorry" and "thank you," and to respond and engage with your customers and prospects.
Speaking of your wedding, I just want to say that I recently got married and I looked at yours as inspiration. Did I have it sponsored? No. But your whole baseball theme was something that it just spoke to me. I, however, am not a Mets fan, so that's where you and I just end our friendship.
Toronto Blue Jays?
Yes. Hardcore Toronto Blue Jays.
I like the Blue Jays. For all the Canadians out there, before we started interviewing, I did a little singing based on my first job. All I can say is, "Oh Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons command." But don't worry, Americans, I love you guys too.
Your talents are endless, Dave. Now, I want to quickly go back to some of your concepts. I know that a lot of it can align to advertising, and we'll talk about that for a second. Social ads are becoming very popular for amplifying content marketing efforts. So what are your thoughts on that? And do you think this is a trend that'll continue? Or, is there a risk of the social ad space becoming oversaturated?
Yeah, great question. The social ad space will eventually become oversaturated, but we have at least five years of huge opportunity. Facebook has changed the rules quite a bit. Something I call Facebook reach it, get in. Essentially, over the last 5 years, it's become harder and harder for businesses to reach their customers and prospects without advertising on Facebook. So-called organic reach has decreased significantly, which means that if you're a small business and you update your Facebook page, a very, very small percentage of your fan base is actually going to see that unless you advertise. So the good news is that we've seen great results from social media advertising. In fact, we've seen such great results that part of our product is that we turn all posts into paid ads on Facebook, which allows you to reach more and more people. And the reason I love social media advertising so much is twofold. First, the targeting is amazing, like super amazing. So if we think about who you'd want to target in the past, you'd think about, for a national brand, you'd want to target 25 to 34-year-old females. For a local business, you might want to target, everyone in the town. But now you can target so much better. So if you're targeting on Facebook, you can reach, if you're a Chinese food restaurant in Cleveland, you can target just people that live in Cleveland that like Chinese food, right? If you're an architect firm in Boston, you can reach just real estate developers in Boston. The fact that you can target by job title, by interest, by age, by zip code, by marital status, it just makes a huge difference. And I told you my line about sort of it's better to reach fewer people. What's cooler than reaching 1 billion people on Facebook, reaching the right people. Well, I took out an ad a couple years ago targeting 34-year-old female married employees of Likeable who live in Port Washington, New York. And of the 1 billion people on Facebook, only one person met those targeting criteria. Literally, my wife is the only person on the planet that saw that ad. So you can advertise so narrowly to the exact right target audience that you want to reach. That's one reason I love social advertising. The other reason I love social advertising is the built-in word of mouth, the built-in social context. It's unbelievably awesome. So imagine for a minute that you're sitting at home watching TV one day, and normally you fast forward through the commercials, but you can't help but notice that in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you see during the commercial the name of your friend Dave, and it says, "Your friend Dave likes this car." You'd be like, whoa, that's crazy. Or you're listening to the radio and you hear, "Your friend Cheryl likes this furniture store." That would be the most powerful form of advertising ever. That's obviously not available on TV or radio or billboards or direct mail. That is available through social media. And between hyper-targeting and built-in word of mouth, social media is a very powerful way of advertising. And for the next 5 years, until it does become oversaturated, small businesses have just got to take advantage of social advertising.
Now, regardless of how awesome all of that is, there are businesses out there who simply refuse to leverage the social space. So how do you respond to those who say that social media just doesn't work in our industry? And for that matter, do you believe social media marketing is a tactic that can help any industry in any market?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, if nothing else, just listening is a super valuable part of social media. So I would say that every business out there can benefit from social media. There are some businesses that benefit more from listening than from the talking part of social media. And those businesses, in a nutshell, not to be mean, but those businesses are like bad, evil businesses. So if you're like a cigarette company or like a business that some people might not want to talk to, then you probably don't want to jump into talking in social media. But even if you're a business that consumers don't like, then you still can leverage so much learning and data and opportunity by listening to what your audience is saying out there. And for pretty much everyone else, especially in the B2B space now with the growth of LinkedIn, just about every business out there really can benefit from social media, both listening and the talking part.
Before we have to say goodbye, I just want to say clearly you are very passionate about this field. So are there any final thoughts you want to share with any of our listeners?
Well, first of all, I don't want to say goodbye. Don't say goodbye. Let's not say goodbye. No, I mean, I could talk for hours. Let me say two things. First, I'm super a big fan of the folks at WSI, our friends at WSI, and any small business out there can benefit significantly from talking to your WSI rep about likable and social media in general. And then second, responsiveness is one of my personal core values. And one trait that I talked about that I didn't talk about that I really believe in is giving away free value. So I'm really committed to giving away lots and lots of great content to help my followers learn. And if anyone has any questions for me today, tomorrow, literally for the rest of your lives, you can tweet me at Dave Kerpen. Or if you really want to go old school, you can email me, dave@likeable.com. I get over 1,000 questions a week, and I respond to each and every one. So please feel free to reach out through social media or email, and I'm thrilled to answer your questions.
Wonderful. Sadly, Dave, that is all the time we have for today.
No! Say it ain't so. I can't believe it. I am so sad.
We will talk very soon, I am sure. On behalf of everyone else listening, I want to thank you for sharing your insights and teaching all of us how to become just a little bit more likable.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's been great chatting with you, and here's to a more likable world.
Well, that concludes this month's episode of WSI's Digital Insider Series. Thanks again to Mr. Dave Kerpen for sharing some great insights into how businesses can work to become irresistible on social networks. And of course, thanks to all of you for listening. I hope you found this session informative, and if you have any questions about what was discussed, be sure to get in touch with the WSI consultant in your region. This is Leanna San Pedro for WSI, signing off.